Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the Speaker of the Arizona House, David Gowan, is asking to be investigated. Also tonight, what do yesterday's presidential primary results mean for Arizona's upcoming vote? And we'll look at how Arizona high school sports facilities were named. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Phoenix City Councilman Michael Nowakowski is drawing criticism after a video surfaced showing Nowakowski objecting to same-sex marriage and transgender rights. The Arizona Republic reports that Nowakowski made the comments last month while speaking to a group of Christian pastors. Nowakowski is a Democrat who previously supported gay and transgender rights, but in the video, he reportedly refers to those rights and says, quote, "I never thought that I would see the day that men and men would be married, or where people would be able to go into the same bathroom as my daughter. This world is changing, and it's time for us to take the leadership and change it back to the way it should be." Now, Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton released a statement today condemning the councilman's remarks. No comment as yet from Nowakowski. Speaker of the Arizona House, David Gowan, is asking that his travel expenses be investigated by the state attorney general. Here with more on that in our weekly legislative update is Luigi Del Puerto of the Arizona Capital-Times, which broke the story of the speaker's use of state vehicles for questionable purposes. Hank Stevenson of your guys' publication. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with that. I want to get to Justin Olson here in a second, who announces candidacy. But Speaker says to the AG, come investigate. Why is he doing this?
So it really had been a surprise. It caught many people off guard. The speculation is that David Gowan probably anticipated that the Attorney General's office is going to investigate him anyway. Tom Ryan, a Chandler attorney, had told reporters several times that he will file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. And the speculation is that to get ahead of the news cycle, if you will, why not just ask the Attorney General to investigate yourself? And in this case, he did that. I think it's a very smart public relations move on his part.
And this again deals with travel expenses. Does it also deal with the days that he supposedly worked but didn't work? Those expenses,
right,
reimbursements as well?
Right, so he's asking the Attorney General's office to investigate not just his use of state-owned cars in going to trips that included trips to CD1, where he's running as a candidate for Congress, but also the fact that in an internal review that he has ordered his House staff to do, they found out that he had overbilled the state for per diem as well as travel expenses. And in short, he has gotten money from the state for days that he wasn't working. And so he's asked the Attorney General to investigate those as well. I would like to add that David Gowan asked the Attorney General to investigate him, he didn't include investigating other members of the House that had also used state-owned vehicles to go to trips.
Why did he do that?
That's a good question. I think he believes that the trips that he had made could be explained, and the fact of the matter, he has repaid the state. I think he's repaid the state $12,000 for those travel expenses and those per diem expenses that he had overbilled the state. And he's saying, in instances where there were questions, I had repaid the state. I've taken the appropriate move of doing that.
So basically, he says, Attorney Generals, please investigate me. Please investigate all these things that I repay to the state. Attorney General's office says what?
If the Attorney General's office is not already investigating David Gowan, I think this letter prompts them to investigate him. And Tom Ryan, as I mentioned before, is going to file his complaint. So add that, and I think you will see an investigation.
Okay, interesting. He announces this the same day that Carlyle Begay announces that he is running for Congressional District 1, the same district that David Gowan is. Any coincidence or no?
At this point, when you have a whole bunch of people running in CD1, you have to look at every single story as somewhat connected in a way. You can't really separate the fact that, as you mentioned, Carl Begay announced yesterday that he's running in CD1, and at the same time, David Gowan has been dealing with his troubles, if you will, and the fact that he also yesterday asked the Attorney General's office to do this investigation. I think his campaign is very wise, and he has some very good people working for him. And I think it's just my speculation. There has to be some thought put to this announcement of or this letter of request to the Attorney General.
Get out in front of it as quick as you can.
Right.
Speaking of running for Congress, Justin Olson, state lawmaker Justin Olson, is going to run against Senate President Andy Biggs for this office. A surprise announcement there? And
it's not a surprising announcement. We've heard for several days that Justin Olson is going to announce he's going to run against Andy Biggs. In fact, other members of the House have told us privately that he has asked for their endorsement. So this came as no surprise to us. Justin Olson is chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, influential member of the House. He's from Mesa. He's very conservative. What we're waiting for or anticipating is that someone like maybe Scott Smith also entering the race. If not, we will have two very conservative, very ideologically positioned legislators, going for Matt Salmon's seat.
I know that Justin Olson, Representative Olson, said he got into it. One of the reasons he got in is because it felt like it was almost ordained, that everyone was just thinking that it's already set in stone that Andy Biggs would succeed Matt Salmon, and he didn't like that. I think a lot of voters are a little questioned about that.
Well, when Matt Salmon announced that he was retiring and said, by the way, I am supporting Andy Biggs, and within the last couple of days, we have seen endorsement after endorsement. And frankly, I can't keep up with endorsements that Andy Biggs is getting. There is some sense that Matt Salmon has sort of orchestrated this to ensure that it's going to be Andy Biggs, that everybody's boxed out, including, for example, Governor Ducey's chief of staff, Kirk Adams, who ran against Salmon a couple of years ago. It would be nice to see some competition. I mean, I think Andy Biggs would welcome that as well. It's always good to see some debates, and from the point of view of reporters, it's always nice when there's some debates.
I think he would welcome one competing interest, especially if that person were similar to him. But if a Scott Smith got in there, a more moderate voice, conservative but more moderately conservative, and you have Olson and Biggs kind of fighting it out on one side and a clear path for Smith on the other, you might have yourself a horse race there.
Right. In fact, there was a poll that was done by a new firm just a couple early this month, late last month and early this month, and the poll essentially said if there's a head-to-head matchup between Andy Biggs and Scott Smith, that Scott Smith is ahead by about 7 points. And I think that's more of a function of a name ID, but it does show you that Scott Smith would be a formidable opponent to Andy Biggs if he were to run in this race.
And especially if it were a three-person race.
If it were a three-person race, there's some speculation that both Biggs and Justin Olson might be getting support from the same pool of voters, and therefore somebody like Scott Smith or Bob Borsig. Bob Borsig already said he's not running, but somebody, a Republican in that mode, could get ahead.
All right, good stuff, Luigi. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
GOP frontrunner Donald Trump solidified his lead last night, winning 5 of 6 state primaries and caucuses. This as Bernie Sanders pulled off a surprising win among Democrats in Michigan. What does it all mean, and what could it mean for Arizona's primary on March 22nd? We ask pollster Mike O'Neill, the owner of O'Neill & Associates. Good to see you again.
Been a while.
Yes, it has. Well, good to have you. And the Sanders win over Clinton, big surprise or just a surprise?
Astounding surprise.
How come?
One, no poll had it anywhere near close. The closest poll showed Hillary Clinton up by 20 points.
So what happened?
We don't know. We absolutely don't know. Now, I will say a couple of things about the polling. One is something I've been saying is bound to happen one of these days. Doing good polling is increasingly expensive, and nobody's willing to pay for it. So you tend to get robocalls and a lot of other things. There were only 4 or 5 polls post New Hampshire. Anything prior to New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders was down so much that it's not at all relevant. They were not done typically by the most sort of the highest ranked firms. But still, it was like 5 out of 5. They all got it wrong. Notwithstanding that, it was shocking.
I heard some people saying that maybe blue collar whites may have voted for Democrats instead of voting for a Hillary Clinton, either voted for Bernie Sanders or went over and voted for Trump.
That's all speculation at this point. I mean, nobody's done a serious analysis of this. I mean, I could throw out 4 or 5 theories.
But is it possible that blue collar vote?
Oh yeah, indeed it is. I mean, there is this interesting confluence. The one thing, the Sanders and the Trump people don't have a lot to do with one another politically, but they tend to be the most upset people. And to the extent that you don't differentiate in great detail on the content of the belief system, if this measure was, well, how upset you are, that they tend to share that in common.
So with that in mind, if let's say the general winds up as Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump, the blue collar Democrats, the whites, the males that may not be all that happy with
Hillary. Used to call them Reagan Democrats.
Used to call them blue dog Democrats.
Yeah.
Will they go over to a Donald Trump?
Well, that's the whole election hinges. That is a very, very good question. And if I could honestly answer that.
But again, it's possible.
Indeed it's possible. I think that I've got 2 scenarios for a Trump-Clinton race. The most probable is a Clinton win by a very large margin. The alternative scenario involves Donald Trump sort of moderating a little bit and figuring that he's got his base. This is the old Richard Nixon strategy. He's got his base that's angry down. He's not going to lose them. We've shown so far he doesn't lose his people no matter what he does. And he moderates, so he says, well, the wall is a goal, but I meant it metaphorically. We're going to stop immigration. I've talked to the experts, and we really should deport people. They don't have a right to people, but 11 million is really impractical. He starts to show a stream of practicality, and some of the folks for him aren't real crazy, but it makes him appealing. His biggest problem right now in a general election is he scores horribly with independents.
Interesting.
Now there are a decreasing pool of true independents, but they do constitute the difference between winning and losing.
You would think independents in general aren't too excited about Democrats, aren't too excited. They'll lean one way or the other, but they're not too excited about the party mechanics. Donald Trump would be a godsend for those folks.
Except to the extent that he comes across as partisan. And this is one of the things that's interesting. That's why Mitch McConnell is starting to have these meetings about how some of his Senate candidates, if it's Trump at the top, you might be able to distance yourself from him because Donald Trump will come across as an extremely partisan figure, and you distance yourself from him, and thereby we can preserve the Senate for the Republicans in the face of a Democratic landslide for president. They've had those meetings.
So Trump last night wins in Michigan, Mississippi, Hawaii. I think Cruz took Idaho. The caucus is there. Kasich comes in 3rd in Michigan. Kasich is still in this race, not having won anything. And really, this 3rd place finish was easily his best showing. Of course, he's got Ohio, his home state, coming. Does he have any chance?
Certainly not to get a first ballot victory or anything of the sort. He has a chance to win in Ohio and thereby deprive Donald Trump of one big chunk of votes. That's winner take all, as is Florida, and the same scenario for Rubio. And the party, to the extent that there's an establishment left, that's their scenario. Rubio takes Florida, Kasich takes Ohio. We keep Donald Trump from getting past 50%.
If they keep Donald Trump from getting past 50%, is it just a hullabaloo there at the Republican convention?
Oh yeah, because you've got to remember, he's going to have 45%. And these delegates are not prone to deal. They're Donald Trump delegates.
Oh, yeah.
How are you going to get them to go along with somebody else? That would be, I want to see that one. And we're all going to get to see it. We could actually have an opportunity for this convention actually to mean something.
To be interesting for a change. It's been decades.
To have some consequence
It's
to
been
it.
decades. These things are just dog and pony show. It's nice to see something maybe happen out of it.
They weren't always dog and pony shows. Then television came, and starting particularly in 72, the Republicans choreographed it beautifully. And everybody, it was like a 4-day commercial, and the news media figured it out and retrenched on their coverage.
76, the Republicans had some pretty good drama there at their convention. And of course, the Democrats in 68 was off the map, and then 72 was crazy time. All right, so with that in mind, Cruz, the only real challenge left for Trump, do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, he's certainly not going to get a first ballot nomination.
No.
The real issue is it's binary. Do you stop Trump or not? And then God knows what happens if you do.
And Marco Rubio, it looks like he is all but out of it. What happened to that guy?
I guess it's what was his constituency. He was elected as a Tea Party guy. And they hung this, this Gang of 8 business. We're going to have some compromise on immigration. And right now, in the Republican primary electorate, no compromise. I have never, ever been for any kind of compromise on this issue whatsoever, or you're dead. And even though he came in as a Tea Party guy, they're hanging this Gang of 8 thing on him, and it's working.
We got about 30 seconds left. Does the Republican establishment understand why Donald Trump is so successful? Do they get it?
I don't think anybody really gets it. In fact, I was calling around to colleagues today trying to find it. Has anybody done any study that really gets to it? We know it's related to anger. We know that it's related to distrust in government. But other than that, I don't think anybody really has figured this one out yet.
All right.
Or even including Donald Trump.
Maybe he probably doesn't know. Mike, good stuff. Good to have you here. Thanks, man.
We want to hear from you. Submit your questions, comments, and concerns via email at arizonahorizon@asu.edu.
Corporations pay big money to see their names on the sides of stadiums and arenas, but in high school sports, the naming of a field is a much more humble and meaningful story. Producer Shauna Fisher and photographer Langston Fields introduce us to a Phoenix author answering the question, who is Jim?
Yeah. Oh, really? There were.
By day, Scott Hansen runs a successful public relations company. But during high school football season, he trades in his suits for stripes as a head referee. And it was at one of those games that Hansen found his newest venture.
I've been officiating high school sports in Arizona for 30 years. And 3 years ago, my football crew and I arrived at a high school, and I looked up at the stadium and saw the name of the stadium. It was at Cactus High School, and it was M.L. Huber Stadium. And I asked the guy in the parking lot, I said, hey, who is M.L. Huber? And he didn't know. The next week, our crew arrived at another high school, Independence High School, to officiate the varsity football game on Friday night, and it says Tolmachoff Stadium on the side of the building. And I asked the guy in the parking lot, hey, who is that? Who'd they name this after? And he didn't know.
Hansen loves history and a challenge, so he decided to do a little research and find out the who and why high school football fields and gymnasiums are named for. What emerged after 3 long years is the book, Who is Jim?
Really what's happened is all of these facilities in Arizona, many of them were named for people a long, long time ago, and it's become sort of lost Arizona history.
Hansen's quest has taken him all over Arizona, from Parker to Thatcher and from Flagstaff to Nogales. In Bisbee, he found the answer to Warren Field.
George Warren was an old prospector back in the 1800s, and George discovered what is now the Copper Queen Mine. Well, George passed away before he had a chance to really make any money from that mining operation. But the people that were around him knew him enough that they named that ballpark Warren Ballpark. But there's a little more about George Warren. Think about the seal of the state of Arizona, and there's a prospector holding a shovel. That's George Warren.
There are fields dedicated to military personnel. McClintock High in Tempe is named after a member of Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders, James McClintock. McClintock was also in the first graduating class of what is now known as Arizona State University.
In Winslow, Arizona, they have the J. Vargas baseball field. Well, J. Vargas was a Vietnam War hero, received a Medal of Honor for his heroism while he was in Vietnam. That's so important to not only Winslow, but to Arizona and the United States in general, that we just can't forget some of those stories that are really a part of what makes Arizona such a great place.
Hansen met many challenges along the way
Much of it had to do with the people at the schools today don't know the history of their own schools.
and discovered that sometimes the most obvious answer is the wrong one.
I grew up right here in Phoenix, and I always thought Greenway High School was named Greenway High School because it's on Greenway Road. But come to find out in my research, Isabella Greenway was the first female congressional representative from Arizona, and her husband, John, was a copper executive who founded Ajo, Arizona.
But when it came to his own alma mater, Washington High School, that perhaps was the easiest one of all. The field is named for Coach Tom Pagel. Hansen played ball for Coach Pagel. In all, Who is Jim highlights 200 fields and gymnasiums. And despite the varied stories, Hansen says the honorees have one common thread.
I think what I really found in doing the research is that the people who are included in the book are or were the fabric of their community. They had such an influence on the student athletes that they coached, the kids that they taught, the community at large, whichever small town or large town that they lived in. They were so important to that particular area that we have memorialized them forever with the names of schools and gyms and those types of things.
And you can find copies of Who is Jim at, appropriately enough, whoisjim.com. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.